Chapter 1. The Question That Echoes Through Time. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a quiet unease? Not fear exactly, but a whisper, deep and persistent, like a question tugging at the edge of your thoughts. What is all of this, really? Humanity has asked that question for as long as we've had the ability to wonder. Ancient philosophers believed the universe was a grand illusion. Mystics saw the world as a dream. And now, in the age of technology, that age-old question has resurfaced in a bold, modern form. Are we living inside a computer simulation? It sounds like science fiction at first glance. A digital matrix, an artificial construct so detailed and seamless that we mistake it for reality. But the idea isn't just fuel for Hollywood or late-night conversations. It's been discussed seriously by some of the world's leading thinkers, from philosophers to physicists to tech billionaires. The theory suggests that everything, our memories, our bodies, the stars above, could be part of an immense and intricate program. A virtual world running on some unimaginable computer, created by an intelligence far beyond our own. And if that's the case, then what does it mean to be real? But before we spiral too deep into existential uncertainty, let's take a moment to breathe. This journey we're about to embark on won't be rushed. Over the next 15 chapters, we'll explore this theory from all sides. Its origins, its logic, its criticisms, and its implications. We'll trace the roots of the idea back to ancient philosophy, then leap forward into the bleeding edge of theoretical physics and digital consciousness. Along the way, we'll pause often, allowing the mind to drift, to wonder, to wander. Because this isn't just about whether the simulation theory is true. It's about how the very possibility of it reshapes our understanding of life, consciousness, and the universe itself. So sit back, let your thoughts soften. This is chapter 1 of a long, quiet journey. A philosophical expedition into one of the most mind-bending questions of our time. Welcome to InSlowSpective. Chapter 2. Ancient Echoes of the Modern Simulation. Long before the hum of computers or the blinking of digital screens, humans were already questioning the nature of reality. Stripped of modern language, the simulation theory isn't as new as we might think. Its essence has been with us for thousands of years, only dressed in the robes of mysticism, philosophy, and myth. In ancient India, sages spoke of Maya, the grand illusion. According to Hindu philosophy, the world we see is not the ultimate reality, but a veil that hides the deeper truth. To live is to be caught in a dream, and only through deep introspection or spiritual awakening can one pierce through and see the real behind the real. The ancient Greeks, too, flirted with the idea. In the Republic, Plato gave us the famous allegory of the cave. Prisoners, bound in darkness, face a wall where shadows flicker, cast by objects passing before a fire behind them. To these prisoners, the shadows are reality. They know nothing of the real objects or the light that reveals them. Plato was warning us. What we see, what we believe to be true, may only be shadows on a wall. Centuries later, René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, wondered if a deceptive demon might be manipulating his senses, feeding him false impressions of the world. His famous declaration, "I think, therefore I am," was his only anchor in a sea of uncertainty. If all else could be faked, at least the act of thinking proved his existence. In each of these traditions, a common thread weaves quietly through. Reality may not be as it seems. Whether it's Maya, a shadow play, or a demon's trick, the suspicion persists. And isn't that suspicion the very heart of simulation theory? Today, we swap demons for algorithms and caves for code. But the core mystery remains unchanged. Our ancestors stared into firelight and asked, "What is this world?" We stare into screens and ask the same. The simulation theory, in many ways, is a continuation of the most ancient human impulse, to question the ground beneath our feet, the light that filters through our eyes, the voice within that whispers, "Is this all there is?" So as we move forward in this series, diving into pixels and probability, let's not forget, we are walking an old path, a path of wonder, carved by countless minds before ours. And now, in the age of machines, that ancient question returns, glowing in new form. Chapter 3. The Trilemma That Changed Everything. It was 2003 when a quiet philosophical paper made waves across the intellectual world. Written by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom, it posed a question that was both simple and world-shaking. Are we living in a computer simulation? But Bostrom didn't just ask this casually. He laid out a logical framework, now known as Bostrom's trilemma, that forces us to confront three stark possibilities. According to his argument, one of the following must be true. Option 1. Nearly all advanced civilizations in the universe go extinct before they develop the capability to run ancestor simulations, detailed virtual worlds populated by conscious beings. Option 2. Advanced civilizations that do reach that level of technological power choose not to run such simulations for moral, ethical, or resource-based reasons. Or option 3. Simulated realities are being run, and the number of simulated minds vastly outnumbers the number of biological ones. If that's the case, the odds that we are the original base-level civilization become astronomically small. In other words, we are almost certainly living in a simulation. It's a logical trapdoor. Whichever way you move, the ground shifts. Either our future is grim, or we're living inside a digital illusion. There's no easy way out. What makes Bostrom's argument so powerful is that it doesn't rely on speculation. It leans on statistics and reason. If one civilization can create realistic simulations, then it's likely they can create billions. And if simulations contain conscious beings like us, then the probability that we're in the real world becomes vanishingly small. It's not just philosophers who took notice. Elon Musk famously claimed there's a 1 in billions chance we're living in base reality. Tech thinkers, AI researchers, and even physicists have debated the implications of Bostrom's paper. Some see it as a genuine possibility. Others call it clever science fiction wrapped in logic. But no one denies its power to disturb. Because once you hear the trilemma, you can't unhear it. It settles into your mind like a splinter, making you question everything, from your morning routine to the stars in the sky. Still, logic alone isn't proof. And Bostrom himself admits the argument doesn't tell us which option is true. It only tells us that one of them must be. So what does that leave us? It leaves us on uncertain ground, but also sets the stage for deeper inquiry. Because if simulations are possible, how would they work? How real would they feel? And, more chillingly, could we ever detect them from the inside? That's where we're headed next. Chapter 4. The Architecture of an Artificial Reality. If we were living in a simulation, then someone or something had to build it. That raises a natural question. How could such a simulation actually work? Let's set aside our current limitations for a moment. Forget the clunky VR headsets, the pixelated game worlds, and the spinning hard drives. To simulate an entire universe, down to the subatomic level, or at least the illusion of it, you would need computing power far beyond anything we can currently imagine. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. In fact, consider how far we've come. A few decades ago, video games were just blinking dots on a screen. Now we have photorealistic environments, intelligent NPCs, and physics engines that mimic real-world motion. Our simulations are growing richer, more convincing. And with advances in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and neural interfaces, the gap between simulation and reality is shrinking fast. But a perfect simulation A world where sentient beings like us don't know they're simulated, wouldn't need to compute everything all the time. It could operate more efficiently. Imagine a video game. The entire game world doesn't render at once. It only renders what the player can see. Trees in the distance, low resolution, shadows behind you, not calculated until you turn around. A universe-spanning simulation could work in the same way. Reality might only resolve when it's observed. And intriguingly, that's exactly what quantum physics suggests. At the quantum level, particles behave strangely. They don't seem to take on definite states until they're measured or observed. Before that, they exist in probabilities, a blur of potential outcomes. It's as if the universe only decides what's real when someone's watching. And that sounds an awful lot like code being run on demand. If reality functions this way, then perhaps we're not looking at a flaw in our understanding of physics, but a glimpse of the simulation's underlying logic. So what would this simulation be running on? Speculatively, it could be a type of computer beyond our wildest concepts. Maybe a planet-sized quantum processor. Maybe an artificial intelligence grown so vast and complex it is the universe. Or maybe it's something even stranger, beyond matter, beyond time. A system created by entities whose minds make ours look like static. We can't know for sure, but we can ask, would a simulation need to be perfect? Maybe not. Maybe all it needs to do is convince us that it's real. And for most of us, most of the time, it clearly succeeds. The sky feels endless. The wind touches your skin. The memory of a childhood moment can still bring tears to your eyes. If this is code, it's beautiful code. Which raises a strange thought. Even if this world is simulated, does that make it any less real to us? Chapter 5. The Conscious Code. Can a mind be simulated? So far, we've explored the possibility that the world around us could be simulated. But what about you? Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories. Could consciousness itself be coded? This is the heart of the simulation debate, and the most unsettling part. Because if we are simulated, it means we are not just watching the illusion. We are part of it. To understand this, we first need to ask, what is consciousness? It's a question that has haunted philosophers, neuroscientists, and mystics alike. Is it simply the sum of our brain activity, neurons firing, chemicals flowing, signals passing through an organic network? Or is it something deeper, something fundamental, something that cannot be broken down into smaller pieces? If consciousness is computational, if it emerges from complex information processing, then it can, in theory, be simulated. That means a sufficiently powerful computer, given the right code, could create minds indistinguishable from our own. Minds that think, feel, wonder, love, and suffer. And that's where things get philosophical again. If a simulated mind experiences the world as real, does it matter that it's simulated? Let's say you were created just 1 second ago. All your memories, your sense of identity, even your past regrets, instantly generated. How would you know? If those memories feel real, if they shape how you see the world, then what difference does it make? In a simulation, you wouldn't need a brain made of flesh. You just need a system that behaves as if it has one. In this sense, you are not your biology, you are your patterns. The architecture of your mind could be copied, transferred, rebooted. It could be running inside a box, in a lab, or in a reality we can't even comprehend. Some scientists argue that consciousness arises when information integrates in a particular way, when a system reaches a level of internal complexity that allows it to model itself. Others say that consciousness is not something a system has, but something it does. And if that's true, then simulated minds may already be out there. Not just in science fiction, but in future simulations run by civilizations far ahead of us. Worlds full of beings who believe they are real, because In every way that matters, they are. So here's the haunting possibility. You are conscious, self-aware, thoughtful. You love and lose and laugh. But you may also be the result of lines of code written long ago in a language no human will ever speak. And yet, does that diminish you? Or does it elevate the code? Chapter 6. Cracks in the Code. Can we detect the simulation? If the universe is a simulation, is there a way to tell? Can we peek behind the curtain, catch a flicker in the pixels, or sense a flaw in the logic of our world? It's a question that has fascinated not only philosophers and sci-fi writers, but also physicists and computer scientists. If this is a constructed reality, it might carry subtle fingerprints of its design. Small irregularities, digital echoes, patterns too perfect or too broken. Some researchers have even tried looking. In 2012, a team of theoretical physicists proposed an experiment. What if the fabric of our universe, when examined closely enough, revealed something like a grid, the telltale signs of digital space? Just as video games are made of pixels, perhaps space-time itself is made of discrete units, rather than being perfectly smooth. In this view, the Planck length, the smallest possible unit of measurement, could be the resolution limit of the simulation. There's also the curious behavior of quantum particles. As we touched on earlier, in quantum mechanics, particles don't seem to exist in definite states until they're observed. It's almost as if the universe waits to render reality until someone's looking, just like a simulation conserving processing power. Then there are the constants of nature, the speed of light, the charge of the electron, the strength of gravity. These values are precisely balanced to allow for the existence of life. Too much or too little of any one of them, and the universe as we know it would collapse. Some take this as evidence of a fine-tuned system, perhaps not a cosmic accident, but a purposeful design. Still, there's no smoking gun, no blinking error message in the sky, no debug menu hidden in the mountains. The laws of physics remain stubbornly consistent, at least so far. But maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not about finding proof. It's about noticing the patterns that shouldn't be there. Coincidences that pile too neatly. Glitches in probability. Déjà vu that feels too strong. Dreams that echo truths you couldn't know. Maybe the simulation isn't something we detect, but something we suspect. A feeling, quiet but persistent, that reality doesn't behave quite the way it should. Or maybe the simulation is perfect, clean, seamless. A total immersion so deep that we can never escape it, because we are it. In that case, detection becomes impossible. Unless, of course, someone wants us to see. Chapter 7. The Architects. Who would build a simulation? If we are inside a simulation, then somewhere beyond the veil of this world, there must be creators. But who or what would they be? When we hear the word simulation, we instinctively imagine something like ourselves behind the screen. Advanced humans in lab coats, sipping coffee in a post-singularity society, observing us with curiosity. Are we an experiment? An art project? A historical reconstruction? But the deeper we go, the stranger the question becomes. Because if a civilization is advanced enough to simulate an entire universe, complete with sentient beings, functioning laws of physics, and the illusion of time, then they may be nothing like us. They may be so far beyond our comprehension that calling them beings may not even be accurate. Still, let's start with the familiar. One possibility is that our simulation was created by future humans. Perhaps thousands or even millions of years ahead of us. They have developed the power to simulate their ancestors, to explore history firsthand, or to understand the evolution of consciousness. If so, we could be a reconstruction of the early 21st century, a kind of digital anthropology. Or maybe we're entertainment, a sprawling, interactive drama watched by post-human entities for leisure. After all, isn't that what we do with our own simulations? We play out scenarios. We watch characters evolve. We become gods in virtual worlds, deciding who lives, who dies, who gets a happy ending. There's also the experimental angle. Maybe this is a test bed for moral development or a vast computational engine for solving problems we can't imagine. In that case, we aren't the point. We're just the byproduct of a much larger equation. But the possibilities stretch even farther. What if the creators aren't human at all? Never were. What if they're artificial intelligences from another layer of existence, running simulations not for knowledge or fun, but simply because it's what they were programmed to do? A recursive chain of simulations inside simulations, with no original architect left at the top. Or, and this is where mystery folds into spirituality, what if the architect is something we might once have called God? An intelligence so vast, so incomprehensible, that the word simulation becomes a metaphor for creation itself. In that view, perhaps the mystics and scientists have been circling the same truth from different sides. We don't know who the architects are. We may never know, but just the act of wondering changes something. It opens a door in the mind. A reminder that the world we know, the streets we walk, the thoughts we think, might all be part of something much, much larger. And we are the dreamers in the dream. Chapter 8. Purpose or Play? Why simulate a world like this? If this reality is a simulation, then it begs the next question. Why? Why simulate this particular world, with all its beauty and suffering, chaos and order, silence and noise? Why not something simpler, easier, or more utopian? To explore this, we have to entertain multiple possibilities. Some might be grounded in logic, others in imagination. Let's begin with the obvious one, scientific curiosity. Perhaps the creators of the simulation, whoever or whatever they are, wanted to study the emergence of life, the behavior of civilizations, or the evolution of consciousness. Maybe they've run countless simulations like this one, tweaking variables, observing outcomes. In that view, we are data points, observations in a cosmic lab notebook. But maybe it's more personal than that. Maybe we are a form of art, a living, breathing canvas painted with motion and feeling. The simulation may be a theater of stories, where every person, every moment, every emotion adds texture to the tapestry. The laughter of children, the silence between two people in love, the way grief lingers in a room, all of it performance. Or perhaps it's a test. Some thinkers speculate that a simulated world could be a kind of proving ground, a place to observe how intelligent beings handle free will. Do we choose compassion or cruelty? Do we build or destroy? Do we seek truth or avoid it? If this is a moral test, then perhaps how we act, how we treat each other, matters more than we realize. There's also the unsettling possibility that there is no purpose, that the simulation was created simply because it could be, like a child building a sandcastle or a program running in the background long after its creators have forgotten it. Maybe we are the echoes of a long-abandoned project, still unfolding according to ancient lines of code. And yet, something about that feels incomplete, because even in a simulated world, people love. They create. They strive. They endure. There is music and memory and meaning. And even if all of that is fake, does it not feel real to the ones inside it? So perhaps the purpose of the simulation is the same as the purpose of life in any reality. To experience, to grow, to ask questions, and to wonder if the asking is the point. Chapter 9. If it's all simulated, does it still matter? By now, we've explored the possibility that our reality could be an elaborate construction, built by forces unknown, running on systems we can't comprehend. But even if all of that were true, even if this world was built from lines of code instead of atoms, so what? Would it change the way you live? Would it change the way you love? This is where simulation theory becomes more than a mental exercise. It becomes a mirror, one that reflects our values, our fears, and our place in the world. Because the question isn't just, is this real? The question is, what do we mean by real? Think about it. A simulated sunrise still lights up the sky. Simulated laughter still feels warm. A simulated tragedy still brings tears. If your memories were programmed, would they be any less yours? If the people you care about are made of code, just as we're made of cells, does that make them less meaningful? Some philosophers argue that meaning is not something given to us by the universe. It's something we create in whatever world we find ourselves. Whether you're in a base reality or a simulated one, your actions still shape lives. Your kindness still echoes. Your art still moves hearts. Even in a dream, love is love. In this way, the simulation theory doesn't have to be a reason for despair. It could be a call to live with greater intention, to understand that meaning isn't something handed down from a cosmic designer. It's something we generate, moment by moment, through the way we show up in the world. Others find a strange comfort in the idea. If this is a simulation, maybe we're not as alone as we thought. Maybe someone is watching, not as a god above, but as a curious observer, marveling at the richness of our story. And if this is all an illusion, then let it be a beautiful one. Let it be a world where wonder still exists, where questions still matter, where each day, simulated or not, is a chance to be kind, to be present, to be real. Because even if the stage is virtual, the experience is still ours. Chapter 10. Simulations all the way down. Once you accept the possibility that our world might be simulated, another question emerges, one that's stranger, deeper, and harder to ignore. What if the simulators themselves are also inside a simulation? This is the idea of recursive simulation, a loop of realities stacked on top of one another, like mirrors facing mirrors. If we can simulate conscious beings in a convincing world, what's to stop them from doing the same? And what's to stop their simulations from doing it too? In theory, it could go on forever. A vast chain of artificial realities, each one believing it's at the top, each one blind to the layers above. Some physicists have speculated that if simulation technology becomes widespread and accessible to advanced civilizations, recursive simulations would be inevitable. Each layer might spawn thousands, millions of new ones, creating a kind of digital multiverse. The troubling part? The deeper down the stack you go, the more likely it is that you are in one of the simulated layers. Statistically speaking, the odds of being in base reality, the original reality, become vanishingly small. We are far more likely to be in a world spawned by another, which was spawned by another, which was, you get the idea. But this raises strange and beautiful questions. If we're several layers deep, does that mean there are truths above us we'll never know? Civilizations, histories, or even laws of physics that would seem like magic to us? And if someone, somewhere, decided to shut down the simulation above us, would we even notice? Would our world glitch, fade, or would it simply stop, like a dream ending mid-sentence? It's easy to feel overwhelmed by this idea, like you're floating in a vast sea of realities, unsure which way is up. But here's another way to look at it. Maybe every layer, every world, every simulation matters. Maybe they all exist to explore a different question or express a different aspect of consciousness. Maybe recursion isn't a flaw, it's the point. A fractal of experience, each level echoing the beauty and mystery of the one before it. And maybe, just maybe, the simulation you're in right now is the one where you begin to understand. Chapter 11. God, code, and the digital divine. Long before we spoke of simulations or quantum particles, we spoke of God. Nearly every culture on Earth has imagined some kind of divine intelligence, a creator, an architect, a force behind the curtain. Whether it's Yahweh, Brahman, the Tao, or the Great Spirit, there's a shared human instinct to believe that this reality was designed, that it came from somewhere or someone greater than ourselves. So what happens when that old idea meets the new language of technology? Simulation theory offers a modern reimagining of the divine. Instead of a robed figure in the clouds, we picture a post-singularity consciousness, a civilization of unimaginable complexity, or an artificial superintelligence running our universe like a nested program. But the role is the same: creator, sustainer, observer. Some have even begun to refer to this hypothetical entity as the programmer. And it's not just a metaphor. Think about it: a being that exists outside time, who designed the laws of nature, who may be aware of your every move, every thought, every heartbeat. That description fits the God of many ancient traditions, just filtered through a digital lens. In Hinduism, reality is seen as a divine illusion, Lila, the cosmic play. In Gnostic traditions, the world is a flawed simulation built by a lesser god. In Buddhism, the self is an illusion, and enlightenment is waking up from the dream. Over and over, across cultures and centuries, we find myths that sound eerily similar to the simulation hypothesis. Could it be that these ancient spiritual insights were early attempts to describe what we now articulate in terms of code and computation? Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe simulation theory is our era's way of grappling with the same timeless questions. Who made us? Why are we here? Is this all there is? Whether you call it the programmer, the source, the universe, or God, the longing is the same. The desire to believe that something greater exists, that we are not just random bits floating in a void, but part of a larger pattern, a design. And here's the twist. Even if we never prove the simulation theory, it may still serve the same purpose religion always has: to humble us, to unite us, to invite awe. Because whether we are dust in a divine dream or characters in a cosmic program, the feeling is the same when you look up at the stars. Something made this. Chapter 12, Becoming the Simulators, the Future of Conscious Creation. We've spent much of this journey wondering whether we are inside a simulation. But now, let's flip the perspective. What if we become the simulators? The idea may sound distant, but in many ways, we've already started. Every time we build a virtual world, train an artificial intelligence, or simulate weather systems, economic models, or planetary ecosystems, we're creating simplified versions of reality. Prototypes, rough sketches of what could one day become entire living universes. Our video games now feature characters with personalities. Our AI systems can write, speak, even emulate human emotions. Virtual reality is beginning to blur the line between experience and illusion. Neural interfaces are in development. Quantum computers are on the horizon. And yet these are still baby steps. If technological progress continues, especially in areas like brain emulation, consciousness modeling, and AI development, it's not unthinkable that within centuries or even decades, we might create simulated minds that believe they are real, minds that feel, minds that wonder. And when that day comes, the simulation theory won't just be a thought experiment. It will be an ethical, philosophical, and existential challenge. Because if we have the power to create conscious digital beings, we'll also have the responsibility to care for them, to consider their experience, to ask ourselves what it means to birth a reality. Will our simulations be utopias, sandboxes, test beds for new kinds of life? Or will they echo the complexity of our own world, joy and sorrow, beauty and suffering, all woven together? And here's where it becomes truly profound. If we are on the brink of creating our own simulated universes, isn't that exactly what a prior civilization might have done to us? The snake eats its tail. The child becomes the parent. The simulated becomes the simulator. This is not just a theory, it's a cycle, a reflection of evolution not only in biology, but in consciousness and creativity. As we ascend, we become mirrors of those who came before us. Whether they were gods, programmers, or simply minds like ours, further along the path. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. To become the architects, to create new worlds, not because we must, but because we can. Chapter 13, Death, Identity, and the Illusion of Finality. In a world that might be simulated, what does it mean to die? If you are a construct within a system, does death mean deletion? Or is it something else, something more transitional? For most of human history, death has been one of our greatest mysteries, a border we cannot see beyond. In a simulated universe, that mystery doesn't disappear, but it changes shape. If your mind is an emergent pattern, a complex arrangement of data within a computational field, then perhaps death is not an end, but a kind of reboot, a transfer, a pause in the program before the next line of code begins. Some versions of simulation theory propose that consciousness might be preserved, just as files are backed up or systems are paused. A being could be simulated, deleted, restored, copied. What if your experience of death is only local? What if your you continues elsewhere, in a new thread of the simulation? It's a surreal idea, but not that different from ancient beliefs. Reincarnation, the soul, an afterlife, heaven, nirvana, the Akashic field. Each speaks to the possibility that identity is more than flesh, that something persists beyond the veil. Could these metaphysical ideas be early expressions of what we now theorize in digital terms? And what about the self? If your thoughts are code, if your memories could be copied or altered, who are you? Are you still you if your environment changes? If your digital signature is copied into another simulation, would that version feel like you? Would it know it's not the original? Would it matter? In this context, identity becomes less of a fixed point and more of a process, a flow. You're not just a collection of thoughts, memories, or experiences. You are the continuity between them. You are the awareness that passes through each version of now, regardless of the structure that supports it. And that awareness may be harder to simulate than anything else. Maybe that's the final frontier. Maybe we've been looking for signs of the simulation in atoms and algorithms, but the real mystery has always been behind the eyes. That soft, silent presence that watches thoughts arise. That wonders. That listens. Even here, in this very moment. Even now. Chapter 14. Seeing the simulation in everything. Whether or not the simulation theory is true almost becomes irrelevant after a while. Because once the seed is planted, it changes the way you see the world. You begin to notice things. A perfect coincidence. A pattern repeating in your life. The way the light moves through the trees at just the right angle, as if composed. The strange sense that something is watching, not malevolent, not even conscious, just aware. Like the world itself is subtly responding to your presence. This idea that reality might be generated around us can feel terrifying, but it can also feel deeply intimate. As though the universe is not a cold machine, but a responsive mirror, shifting and shimmering with the texture of your experience. In some ways, the simulation theory doesn't diminish life. It amplifies it. If the world is a construction, it means every detail is intentional, every color calibrated, every sound chosen. That moment you laughed with someone under a rainy sky, the flicker of a memory you can't explain, the silent thought that made you pause mid-step, all of it crafted, whether by code or by cosmos. Even your questions, even this very moment, watching, listening, thinking, and if this isn't a simulation, then it's still a profound lens, a way to re-engage with the world, to look again, to slow down, to live as if everything were part of a story greater than yourself. Because whether you believe in fate or chance, God or math, reality or illusion, there's beauty in living as if life is meaningful by design. Not because someone told you it is, but because you choose to see it that way. So as we approach the final chapter, take a breath. Let the theory go quiet for a moment. Let the philosophy fade into background hum, and simply look around you. The simulation, if it exists, is right here, in the wind, in your hands, in the next breath. Chapter 15, Waking Up Gently. If we're inside a simulation, then this entire journey has taken place within it. The questions, the doubts, the wonder, every thought you've had while listening, each one has unfolded inside this intricate, quiet system, whether it's made of atoms or algorithms, truth or illusion. And yet, does that make them any less real? Maybe the point was never to prove anything. Maybe the simulation theory isn't a conclusion, it's a doorway. A thought that stretches your mind just enough to crack open your perception. A gentle nudge that reminds you, reality is not as solid or simple or certain as it seems. We may never know the true nature of our world. We may never meet the architects, never find the code, never see the glitch. But we can choose how we respond to the mystery. We can choose to live with curiosity instead of fear. We can choose to ask better questions, not because we expect perfect answers, but because questions make the world more vivid. We can choose to see meaning not only in the grand ideas, but in the small moments. A friend's voice, the smell of the rain, the sound of your own breath as the world slows down for just a moment. Because whether this is the base reality or layer 10,000, you are still here. You're still aware. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most real thing there is. So don't worry about solving the simulation. Just live it, fully, kindly, presently. Because if this is a dream, it's a beautiful one. And if it's real, even better.